Hello, friends, and welcome to the Send the State series with Protect Our Winters. I am your host, Graham Zimmerman, and we've got a week to go till the election, and this is an exciting time. I'm delighted to be here. This is hosted by Protect Our Winters. It is supported by Rock and Ice, and we are here this evening talking about New Hampshire with Micah Burhart, the one and only. Micah is a pro climber. She is a conservation entrepreneur. She is an author, and she is also the executive director of an organization called Legato. I think she's also the founder. And so this is a really exciting evening for us to chat with Micah about what it means to be a pro climber, what it means to be a conservationalist, what it means to be kind of involved in the business of that space, and what it means to bring all of that together. So Micah, thank you so much for being here with us this evening, and we can't wait to hear the stories that you have to share.
Awesome. Thanks, Graham. Let's see. We'll get the presentation up and we'll get going.
I'll see you at the end.
All right. Sounds great. Welcome, everyone. It's really good to be here on a somewhat, I'm looking outside my window, night falling on New Hampshire. It's going to fall even faster next year. As Graham said, my name is Micah Burhart. I'm a New Hampshire resident. I am a pro climber. I'm a conservation entrepreneur. I'm also a mom. I have 4-year-old twins. I've been living in New Hampshire full-time for about 8 years and on and off for 13. And today I'm going to tell you a story about what New Hampshire has done to teach me to be a better climber and a better person. Ultimately, I've spent my career traveling around the world through climbing, putting up first ascents, writing books, making films. But along the way, I started paying less attention to getting the top of a mountain or a climb and paying more attention to what was around a mountain. Because of that, now, today, much of my time is spent working to protect what I call sky islands, like this mountain here, Mount Namuli in Mozambique. These are the world's most hyper-biodiverse mountains, places that serve as the water towers of our world. Why did I choose to do that, considering that I have a background as a pro climber? Well, it has a little bit to do with New Hampshire, because you might not think that Mozambique and New Hampshire are close to each other or have much to do with each other. But the one thing I've learned in 2.5 decades of traveling the world in the mountains are that mountains are mountains. And mountain people are mountain people, no matter where you are. They're tough as nails because they have to be. All of us from New Hampshire, I believe, have a secret obsession with tenacity. Because while on the surface, we know that something like rock climbing here can be the most beautiful and synergistic thing in the world, like it might seem like it is in this picture, we also understand that in order to get to the beauty, we have to go through the groveling. We have to do the weird, the hard, the insecure, and the baloney of it. And ultimately, it's that part of climbing in New Hampshire, the awkward, hard part, that makes it so damn addictive. For example, there's a lot of moments of bliss, and you should really revel in them when you are a climber. When you're a climber in New Hampshire, you happen to be in New England getting on the ice, because they're not going to last very long. Inevitably, right after this, it's going to look like this, which is never a photo that anyone would show in a slideshow, except for the fact that right here, I'm trying to kick my right foot into this curtain and not shatter it, but get enough purchase so that I can actually be able to move forward. And I'm in this weird like head cam / reverse shoulder push off this block that's behind my head, which unbeknownst to me at that time, 2 years later, will completely fall out of this climb, making this climb irrelevant and impossible to repeat after that point. This is the kind of stuff that we love in New Hampshire and that we live for. Which is why when I saw a picture of this mountain in Mozambique, Mount Namuli, and when I zoomed in and saw that actually up close, it looked like a giant chia pet, I wasn't afraid. Instead, I was inspired. And I kept thinking to myself, how do I go and climb that thing and actually add value and take that tough, awkward, weird, hard stuff that I love to do and do it not just for the heck of it, but so that I actually move the needle globally for how these mountains are understood and how these mountains are taken care of. And so I put together an international team of biologists and climbers, and we headed up Namuli to put a first ascent up, not only for climbing, but predominantly for science, and to try to find species that were new to science, and also launch a new conservation movement with the people who are living around the base of this mountain. The other thing that climbing in New Hampshire has taught me is that climbing doesn't happen in a vacuum. This is a shot of me being pummeled by spindrift on what was one of the sort of dodgiest and hardest ice leads for me at the time. And 10 minutes away from me, there are people drinking lattes and eating bagels in North Conway. This is not the remote backcountry, but it can feel as consequential at, even quicker. I finished this climb and I drove exactly 12 minutes away to my then 18-month-old twins to nurse them. This was my life. I used to think that for there to be any value in being in the outdoors, that it had to be remote. It had to be far flung. And when I grew up in Minnesota, that's how I cut my teeth. I cut my teeth on big canoe expeditions in the Boundary Waters, in the Quetico, in the Arctic. But New Hampshire turned it upside down for me. And it's a good thing, because in New Hampshire, we don't see the outdoors as separate from us. We are the outdoors. Which is why when I see mountains now, I don't look at them as mountains. I look at them as homes, like homes for this family, the Napalakis, who live at the base of Mount Namuli and who make their family here, and who are working to create a thriving future for them. And that's the organization Legato that I founded in 2014. That's what we do, is we work all over the world in these hyper biodiverse sky islands by working with people like the Napalakis and saying, what is it going to take for this place where you live to thrive, not only for your family, but for its biodiversity, so we can all create a future for our lives in these mountains, which is the same thing I'm looking to do for me and my family home in New Hampshire, to have a life that is inextricably linked to the mountains and to the outdoors. You don't have to go very far or spend a lot of time in the outdoors right now without thinking about climate change. Here's a shot. A lot of times we see these classic pairings, right, of glacier melt and seeing what the reality is. This is the Mer de Glace in Chamonix at the turn of the century. Here's the Mer de Glace today. It's dramatic, but there's also dramatic evidence of what's happening here in New Hampshire. This is the front page of the local paper from January in 2018, when a 2-inch rain event happened, which shouldn't happen in January, and caused a massive wet slide avalanche in Tuckerman Ravine up on Mount Washington. The examples are endless. 5.6 degree increase in average temperatures in Concord, New Hampshire, since 1970. There are estimates that if things don't slow down, the entire ski economy of New England won't exist by the time my children are 24 years old in 2040. And not all of this is changing our recreation in New Hampshire, it's changing, our livelihoods. And that's the thing that I really think about in New England. I grew up in Minnesota, and then I lived in Colorado. I lived in Nessus Park. I lived in Boulder. But here in New Hampshire, it's where you really see this tie for every single person who lives here. The outdoors are part of them. They're part of how they explore the world, but they're also part of how they make their living and how their family survives. And so when something changes from a climate change perspective and changes what we have access to in the outdoors, the bottom line is it changes people's livelihoods. And that's been something that really rallies people in New Hampshire to stand up and stand against what's happening from a climate change perspective. We can do something about this. And that's one of the biggest opportunities that we have in front of us right now. To turn the tide of climate change, we all need to understand that we're intertwined with our planet. And here in New Hampshire, there are few things we embody more than the connection that we have with the outside. I like to think about, there's this concept that Protect Our Winters has put out recently about the outdoor state, right? Like, let's take advantage of the connection we have to the outside and leverage it. Let's have our tenacious state lead the way in the outdoor state, which is a place where with over 50+ million people invested in the outdoors, we're bigger than the largest state in the US. And as New Hampshire, one of the smallest states in the US, can lead the way in that to actually make sure that we are pushing outdoor recreation up against climate change and up about activism towards voting and making sure that we're standing up for the places that we love. All of us can be outdoor advocates. This is a picture of my father-in-law, Roger Doucette, who, among other things, hiked the Appalachian Trail with his other son, not my husband, but his other son, Jim Doucette, just a couple years ago. And Roger embodies a true love of mountains and wild places. And when I think about the people who make New Hampshire, it's people like Roger. It's people who care about this place and will do anything they can to protect it. And at a certain level, it's just because it's part of our DNA. No matter what your passion is, whatever it is that takes you outside, whether it's skiing, whether it's climbing, whether it's hiking, whether it's fishing, biking, we can all rally to be on the same team. One of the best things we can do right now is vote. And it's something we all know. I saw a great cartoon today on Instagram, and it was some woman walking through a forest and all the clouds said vote. She said, I wonder if someone's trying to tell me something, right? It's everywhere. But beyond voting, it's about making a plan. And if we make a plan, we are so much more likely to pull it off. My plan is that I have my absentee ballot. I've already filled it out, but I also want to vote in person. So I can, at any moment, walk the exactly 0.2 miles that it takes for me to get to my town hall and turn in my absentee ballot. And hopefully I won't have to do that. Hopefully I can go vote in person, and my family will be healthy, and I'll be healthy, and I'll feel like that's a good choice on November 3rd. But if not, I have my insurance plan and I know how to leverage it so that my vote is counted. Thanks, everybody. I'm super honored to be part of this community with you. I'm really excited to hear about what your plan is to vote and how you want to be a part of this, and how something like the tenacity of living in New Hampshire or climbing here has led you to the mountains of the world and then back again to fight the fight that's worth protecting what we have. All you, Graham.
Micah, I just love hearing these stories of of climbing in Mozambique, but for me, climbing in New Hampshire is, for me, I think personally that the ice climbing in New Hampshire is actually the best that we have in this country.
Yeah, it's stand down, absolutely.
It is, yeah, it's outstanding. And I have never really lived in New Hampshire. I've hung out there a lot, and it's a place where I try to visit as much as I can. And you know, Micah, you probably don't remember the first time that we met, because you were like well on your path to being a pro climber and who was working in conservation, and I was one of the young ne'er-do-wells just chasing around whatever steep things I could find. But I remember the first time we met, I think it was at either an AAC event or at one of the ice fests there in North Conway, and I was just blown away that you were taking this thing, that this shared love that you and I had for climbing, and utilizing it for something else, something much larger, and utilizing it to craft change. And I just wanted to ask you, what's some advice that you might give to a youngster, either in New Hampshire or elsewhere, on how to kind of take the first step in that transition?
That's a great question. I think a lot of it is just standing in what you're passionate about and going after making it be the thing that intersects with everything that you do. And it's not going to be logical right away. And I look back at my career and what it looked like when I was 24 and I was guiding, and I was also, putting together, different writing projects on the side, and I was freelancing to do this, and I was driving toward it. It didn't all line up, but I was always making sure to pursue this fundamental concept I had towards social justice and what that meant for environmental justice. And that was the thread that carried me forward to be able to do this now. So it isn't instantaneous, but if you make sure to bring your passion with you to any of the work that you're doing, it'll more likely be what you do for your living down the road.
I love that. I really appreciate that. And it strikes me that you're talking about gumption and grit that we take into climbing, and applying that to these things is such a cool skill to have. And I think that the next question I have for you is kind of almost the opposite. Now here you are, you're a leader in our community on these subjects. You have a family, you've got kids, and you're still out there cranking. I mean, you were talking about how you were climbing on that ice climb, and then went home to your kids, and finding that. Oh, hi.
This is Kaz. He decided to join us. Hi, bud.
Hey, your mom's sure cool.
Wow.
But I just, kind of the converse of that is, how once you take all these things on, how do you achieve finding some balance with still going climbing and still finding that passion for these outdoor spaces?
For me, the way I balance it is knowing that like everything needs to be part of my life to give me equilibrium, but it might not be in the ratio that I initially expected, or it might not be in the ratio that I expected for the day. Thank you. Come here, Rent-A-Bear. Hey, come here. Come here. So this is how I balance it. And putting these pieces together, and also identifying that, like my kids, like we all try to figure it out the best we can together, but it also means less time with them when I go climbing. And sometimes I'm not climbing and I decide, hey, in this moment, this isn't where I need to be, or it is where I need to be, so that I can be the balanced kind of mother that I need to be part of this world. So it's not easy, but it's pretty fun to be having like the reality check with pumpkins included inside. This was not planned. This was a total twin bomb of.
This is amazing. I love this.
Yeah, you're my pumpkin. Amanda and Cass, can you say hi? Hi, and then can you say go with Papa?
Thanks for coming on, team.
Yeah, it's all part of it. But I mean,
I think that this is really powerful, and I think this is really powerful. Not only when we talk about voting and the importance of showing up in this election that we have in a week, but also thinking about how we continue this conversation, how we continue to engage, and why we continue to engage. And but I think the last question I have for you is, maybe you already have voted, in which case you can kind of answer this in the past tense. But what is your plan to vote? Like I said, Graham, I haven't voted. I have my absentee ballot filled out, ready to go. I am convinced, because I live in a small town, that I want to vote in person. And I remember when I was the age of my twins that I used to go vote with my parents. These two won't be coming with me right now because of COVID and not going to have extra exposure. But if I need to, I can send in that absentee ballot. I can even hand it in the day of, or I can go and I can call out voting in person. And then I'm going to count ballots that night at 7:00 on Tuesday night. I'm one of the ballot counters for our town. That's amazing. Well, it seems like I should let you get back to these kiddos of yours. Thank you for joining, little ones. And Micah, I cannot tell you how much I appreciate you chatting with us this evening. I cannot tell you how much I appreciate you dedicating your time towards the POW program in general. You're an inspiration to us all, and thanks. Thanks, everybody. Is there anything else that you want to share? I guess the last thing I would share is that it's never perfect, right? Like, it's never perfect, and that's part of being. That's part of this moment. It's never perfect, but it's reality, and it's how we make reality work for us and work for our country that matters. So thanks for having me. I love it. With that, we're going to sign off. Everyone, we encourage you to go vote. You're actually going to get kicked off of here onto the Make a Damn Plan website, and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks, everybody.